So before we get to our illustrious speaker, I just wanted to do one little bit for you, which is many of you know that this was the last year of the third Maryland, DC Breeding Bird Atlas, the year project. And we had an ending number of participants, and most of them bird club members. Since all of you worked so hard on this project, I thought you might like to see preliminary results. Oh, yes. So I'll go quickly. It's just a few slides. Nothing here is official. I just asked coordinator to prepare a few statistics, some rough and ready slides to go over. And this first slide here, is it shared? Let's see. Yes, it is shared. Okay. This first slide here just shows just how amazing the participation was. I mean, in the second Breeding Bird Atlas, pretty much it was done in a way where each of those squares, each block had one adopter. Maybe they had a little help, but and many adopters had multiple blocks. So you can see the change in the participation rate due to eBird basically meant that some blocks had as many as 160 participants, and just tremendous. And the average contribution to each block was 35 participants. So this changed the nature of things quite a lot, but it meant there was tremendous amounts of data. So, oops. Is it not going? Just go down. Okay, we'll figure that out. Okay, so the little block is covering it, but this is actually for for the second Breeding Bird Atlas, which happened in 2002 to 2006. And it's just the number of coded species that we found, the number of breeding birds in each block in Montgomery County in the second Breeding Bird Atlas. And you see the average is about 78 breeding species per block, which is pretty good. And the range is somewhere between 60 to 100 breeding bird species per block. And that things sort of are the least around the least around the city, the DC, and the most around the edges, and sort of middling along the Beltway. So that was what it looked like, in the second Breeding Bird Atlas. But then, let's see, is it? Okay, so this shows in the third Breeding Bird Atlas, the one we this season. Well, there's you can't draw any conclusions to compare to the second Breeding Bird Atlas, because you may or may not notice that the scale is completely different here. So that's not, you can't draw conclusions to compare with Breeding Bird Atlas 2, but what you can see is that there was a little bit of a decrease in the average number of species to 75. I don't know whether that's significant yet, but I think that it is, as you'll see. In fact, we might have sort of inflated numbers just because of the degree of participation. But anyway, also things seem to have smoothed out a little bit in terms of there seemed to be more variation in the last Breeding Bird Atlas, but here there seems to be a little smoothed out, and there's still a little bit more on the edges where the river and the Tridelphia is, and there's less of a decrease around here in the eastern part of the county, compared to the Beltway, which is probably where the least birds were found. But Yeah, well, if the beltway is going up here and yeah, 270 and the beltway here. Yeah. So basically that's where the least number. And I know this for sure because I personally birded a great deal around here and had great struggles finding species. So, oh, did it work? Okay, good. Why do I think that the decrease is real? Well, this slide shows us that quite a few species had a fairly large decrease in their range in the county. We lost a number, I mean, we lost considerable numbers of breeding warblers. Yellow warbler had 25 more blocks they were breeding in Breeding Bird Atlas 2 than Breeding Bird Atlas 3. 20 years later, American redstart, ovenbird, all of those suffered decreases. Prairie warbler, oh, sorry, prairie warbler, as you can see. And then Bob White almost to nothing. Apparently, I guess I didn't realize that there might have been one, but anyway, they went from something to almost nothing. And so you can see quite a few birds with considerably decreased range. And to continue that story, we had something like, oh yes, 10 breeding species completely lost between Breeding Bird Atlas 2 and Breeding Bird Atlas 3. The coot, the black-throated blue warbler, common nighthawk, which is largely eradicated throughout these counties. Oh, okay, 9, yes. I'm sorry, I repeated common nighthawk. Whippoorwill, swamp sparrow, all these were found in Breeding Bird Atlas 2, but not in Breeding Bird Atlas 3. To a slight offset in some species that increase their range in Breeding Bird Atlas 3, and we don't know yet what the significant what's significant yet, but these Gabriel thinks these 3 species are likely to have expanded their range in a significant manner. That's wild turkey, warbling vireo, and blue grosbeak. And a few new breeding birds, which you probably all know about, common raven, which has been expanding to the east, great egret, Mississippi kite. I'm sure you all know about the Mississippi kites that have been coming north to breed, and peregrine falcon, which is making a comeback in urban areas. So that's what we gained compared to what we lost. Well, I'm not going to draw any sweeping conclusions because the data hasn't really been processed yet, but I think we can see that I've lost species diversity in the county. So that's just my little Marie to help people understand what we learned from Breeding Bird Atlas 3, and hopefully, doing studies like this may help us to counteract further bird losses, or maybe even help recover some. Who knows? So we have to be hopeful. Okay, so that's, I hope, take too long, and I will let Joe take over. Mark will be introducing, but I'll get you